Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the next gen of racing at FASTR BMW M4 Sunday Racing League Season 20. I'm your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and we are here at trackside in Interlagos, Brazil, for what is round number 7 of what has been a hotly contested season throughout so far. Now, we're going to be recapping the story very shortly, but I hope you're all doing well and that you're having a good weekend as we come to the end of another weekend and make our way deeper and deeper into May 2021. Oh, how the time has flown over the course of this year, and indeed this season has flown by very rapidly as we're heading into the final quarter of the season following tonight's races. It has been a hotly contested season, both within the Alien League and also within Division 1. We are, of course, focused on those two divisions. There's also a Division 2, also known as the Lobby 2, which is being hosted by a different team and broadcasted by a different team, so feel free to check those guys out. They do post-race commentaries. I can't remember the name of the team, but I'm sure I can provide that next time for you. But all the same, we've got two lobbies. We're focused on the top split tonight with Alien League and Division 1, as we typically are. And we are going to be getting underway with some frantic racing action, all starting off with qualifying at the hour. So in 19 minutes' time, we'll be expecting to get underway for the 10-minute qualifier, after which that will determine the grid order, of course. And then we'll have race number 1, a 10-minute race, a sprint race, and then following race number 1, we have the reverse grid race of race number 2, which again is another 10-minute sprint race. So that's the format for tonight, the same format as we typically use, and we are of course sticking to the mantra whereby in qualifying our drivers will be separated based on their league. So whoever is the fastest of the Alien League drivers will be starting on pole for race number 1. Conversely, the slowest of the Alien League drivers, if we have all 5 of them at 10 tonight, the slowest of them will be starting 5th place on the grid. The Alien League guys will be starting up the front of the field, and from that point onwards, from P6 downwards, you'll then have the Division 1 drivers in order of their qualifying time. That way, we're able to slightly segregate the two leagues, but of course that doesn't stop some of our faster Division 1 drivers from taking it to the Alien League drivers. As we say hello to Martin NVXR in the chat. I'm sorry, Martin VXR in the chat, I should say there. Misreading a slight username. And let's introduce our drivers once again and recap on how things turned out for them at last round at Sardinia Road Track B at the fictional Italian circuit. So we're going to start off by focusing with our Alien League drivers, as we typically do. And the story continues of one of dominance in the hands of the British driver of Sparks Fury, now leading the Alien League on 232 points by a major margin of almost 70 points over TNR Philo. Sparks really has been the driver who has set the pace throughout the entirety of the season to date, albeit he hasn't always been miles away from the rest of the competition, particularly in the form of both Philo and also Matthew Lambert from Division 1. But where it has mattered, Sparks has been the one who's been able to break away from the pack and just simply run away from the proceedings. And last time out, in both of the races at Sardinia, Sparks was the overall winner in the Alien League, winning both of the races by a considerable margin, and I believe being the only driver to make an 8th lap in both race 1 and race 2. What an absolute dominant display. Nonetheless, Sparks is still being chased down by TNR Philo, and I believe Philo has yet to join the lobby, but we are expecting Philo to arrive at some point tonight, so we'll keep our eyes out for Philo down in the paddock. Then we come on to Luke Mitchell, who is not here at the moment either, our 3rd place Alien League driver. And to fill you in, last time out, Philo having a good string of results, albeit not able to take a candle to Sparks' flame, and as a result sitting on 166 points, and Luke Mitchell chasing after him on 161 points. It is getting to him very close in the battle for P2 in the Alien League Drivers' Championship. P4 at the moment in that championship is the Dutch driver of GTP, Rick WRX. Rick not being able to attend last week, severely compromising his points haul, and Rick having to now arrest a decline in form, whether it's been attendance at races due to personal circumstances, or just not able to perhaps find the pace that he's been looking for in, say, round 5, for example. And as a result, tonight, Rick is going to try and turn that around by making his return to the racing as of the second half of the season, and will be looking to increase his points haul from that current total of 109 points and trying to inch himself closer to Luke Mitchell, try and get himself away from the battle for P4 and turn it into a three-way battle for P2 in the standings. The flip side of the coin is, of course, that whilst Rick is trying to break away from the bottom of the Alien League, he does, of course, have the pressure of Luke Doherty 94, who unfortunately was not able to compete last time out at Sardinia due to connectivity issues from what we recall as were found in the races. So as a result, there were 2 did not compete or did not start or did not finishes by Luke Doherty there, and so Luke on 80 points, and we're waiting to see if he does turn up down the paddock tonight. Luke's got it all to play for and a lot of work ahead of him if he wants to get off the bottom step of the Alien League. However, coming over to our Division 1 drivers, we start off with this man right here, the British driver of Matthew Lambert, who really has been pushing the frontier in terms of pace within the Division 1 driver group, in the fact that Matthew, whilst he had a slower start to the season by comparison with his main competitor Martin JL09, it has been in the second half of the first point of the season, plus also coming into the second half of the season itself. So really from round 3 onwards, where Matthew seems to have stepped up considerably and really started to take the challenge to the throne of Division 1 and really putting pressure on Martin JL09 as well. And last time out, that was shown at Sardinia, with Matthew picking up what was in the end a very good display in race number 1, winning for Division 1 overall in race number 1. Having a bit of a difficult race number 2, however, not able to pick up the win there, finishing just outside of the podium from what we recall. And as a result, Lambert will be recognising the fact that he didn't quite get the perfect evening. However, he has increased his points lead considerably. He's now on 202 points, and he is almost 30 points clear of Martin JL09, the gap itself being the region of 27 points. At which point we do come over to our other British driver, who is our second place man in Division 1 so far, the British driver of Martin JL09, who on 175 points had a very difficult time last time out at Sardinia. In the fact it just didn't seem to come together no matter what he did. He felt as though the combination just wasn't working out for him, and he didn't quite have the pace he was hoping for, and what it meant was in the end he finished right towards the back in both of the races in Division 1, and so Martin was not able to keep his points deficit to Matthew Lambert as closely as he would have liked, and so that gap has opened up. It was much closer last time out, but it's now opened up to 27 points, and Martin will know that tonight he's really got to be on form to make sure that Lambert cannot run away with this championship and do essentially what Sparks has been doing with the Alien League, but Lambert of course will be trying to do that for Division 1. It's at that point then we've got a sizable gap of the best part of 36 points all the way down to P3 in Division 1, and that is held right now by the Dutchman of Sir Bertus. And Bertus has really come alive, it should be pointed out, since the transition to the second half of the season. Last time out, Bertus in race number 1 picking up 12 points for a midfield position, a little bit towards the back. Meanwhile in race number 2 it really did work out for Bertus, finishing towards the podium, and Bertus having a good time in race number 2 at Sardinia, and this has really been an indication of where Sir Bertus is starting to come into form and is pushing harder and harder with remaining races to go, and really finds himself now pushing towards the upper part of Division 1. And on 139 points he's now got a nice 14-point gap to our 4th place man in Division 1, and that is Duskiver. Duskiver, who we believe is at trackside or is going to be at trackside. Here he is. In fact, he is running around on circuit at the moment. The British driver in P4 in the Division 1 Championship on 125 points. Duskiver having that mixed form that we have seen throughout the season, albeit Sardinia was relatively okay for Duskiver. He's finishing in the midfield in both race 1 and race 2. And I think for the British driver tonight, he'll be hoping that he can just get towards the top 5 in Division 1, and that way just keep the pressure on Sir Bertus a little bit and perhaps try to follow Sir Bertus in the breakaway from the rest of the Division 1 drivers in that battle for P3, because on 125 points he's only got a 9-point lead over D10 Piper. This man right here, the British driver who's just made a major mistake coming out of turn 4 into turn 5, but the Brit doing some donuts now, spinning the car around in the runoff area and waiting to rejoin safely of course. D10 on 116 points, having a good set of results at Sardinia, it should be pointed out, with a podium in a race number 1, a 3rd place in race number 1 for Division 1, and in race number 2 it didn't quite work out, what with the reverse grid and him having to start towards the back, but he did end up with a midfield finishing position, giving him a total tally of 18 plus 13, so 31 in the end, and that's put him on 116 points. And D10 again, a driver who seems to be coming alive more and more as we go deeper into this season, and we look forward to seeing what the Pornhub liveried mobile can do today, sponsored by that adult company of course. We then got to go only 3 points further down to our 6th place man in the Division 1 Championship, and that is DCast16. Now DCast, meanwhile, we're just trying to find him. I believe he has joined the lobby, but he's not quite got out into the paddock or out on circuit as of yet. But DCast currently sitting on 113 points with a 3-point deficit to D10 Piper. I mean, it's not to say that it's not going to work out and he can come back. Of course, he can come fighting fit and back into that contest for Division 1's 5th place position right now. And we look forward to seeing D-Cast out on circuit in a very short order. As we see, Luke Doherty has arrived and is turning up at the paddock very shortly. But coming back to our Division 1 drivers, from D10 Piper, then you've got to go the best part of 13 points down to P8, and that is Gino Demmer, who is currently in P8. And do keep in mind that last time out, D10 Piper, who actually is just my sincere apologies, we seem to have a little bit mixed up on our statistics charts actually. Give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. So we do seem to have two drivers in our statistics sharing the exact same name, unfortunately. So D10 Piper at the moment is in P5 in the drivers' standings for Division 1. And then it's D-Cast, who we mentioned earlier, who has now arrived at the paddock. Here is D-Cast right here, the British driver, who last time out had a very difficult time at Sardinia, finishing towards the back in both Race 1 and Race 2. And on those 113 points, as we mentioned, we'll be looking to pick up some more solid points tonight. And D-Cast has proven he can be up towards the upper portion of the midfield in Division 1. He just needs the right combination to do so. We then got another driver who's currently listed at D10 Piper in our written statistics here, but I'm just trying to get the alternate name for the driver. You will just have to give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, because there is a little bit of confusion in our statistics right now. I believe the driver that's been confused here is Edge, HJG. So here is Edge, who is our man who's currently sat in what is P7 in the championship standings for Division 1. On 108 points, last time out, Edge was not able to participate in round number 6, unfortunately due to personal circumstances, but he's back at trackside today and looking to go ripping and raring around Interlagos. And Edge right now just a little bit outside of what looks to be the midfield of Division 1, the running midfield, all chasing after that P3. But on those 108 points, he's only 5 off of D-Cast, and we look forward to seeing what the British driver is able to achieve. You've then got a 13-point gap to Gino Demmer, who is our trackside steward for tonight and our lobby host. Here is the Espana racing driver here, the Brit, currently standing on 95 points and really having the worst of anybody's form within Division 1 back at Sardinia last time out. Not picking up great sets of points in either of the races, and Gino has had a difficult season so far in all 6 rounds, in the fact that things just haven't quite worked out the way he's wanted it to. And in a good number of cases, unfortunately, what it's been is a number of incidents have occurred and he has been the victim of those incidents, and not for his own doing or just being in that inconvenient place. He's just found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he's been the one on the receiving end of the incident. Sardinia didn't see that, but it just wasn't a combo he felt too comfortable with. And then last but not least of our Division 1 drivers, who we see coming back tonight, of course, is Nath 1981. The British driver running for Red Bull Racing on 86 points and having a very good set of results last time out at Sardinia, picking up what was in the end a 6th place in race number 1 in Division 1, and then picking up the win in race number 2 for the Division 1 drivers. Nath having that brilliant result despite being under a huge amount of pressure from the drivers around him, holding on in the end. And well, Nath will be looking to continue that momentum tonight as we see that we're getting even more drivers turn up at the circuit now, and we can introduce some of the drivers who we overlooked a little bit earlier on. We can see that TNR Philo has arrived, and Philo will be down the paddock very shortly and out on circuit, that I can assure you. As we introduce or reintroduce Luke Doherty 94, the 5th of our Alien League drivers has currently stood in the standings, 5th place in the Alien League on those 80 points, not being able to race the last time out at Sardinia with those connectivity issues, which were quite comical. Drivers were saying up and down the field there were some funny moments as he drifts his way into turn 1, just slightly putting the rear right wheel there on the grass on the outside of the circuit, but Luke Doherty turning into a missile at turn 1 at Sardinia due to connectivity issues. But everybody was very accommodating and everyone laughed it off, including Luke himself, and he's back tonight ripping and raring to go for some more racing. We also do have, of course, to bringing back our Alien League drivers, we have TNR Philo, who we are waiting to get out on circuit. I believe he's not currently got himself set up, but we are waiting for Philo to say hello by putting himself out on the track. And we're just checking to make sure whether we do have any issues here. We do not have any issues right now. You can see Luke Mitchell there with the hello Paul as his intro message. Good evening, Luke. That's nice. Now, I presume it's referring to me. It may not be, of course. That's a little bit modest to myself. But I am just checking to hear that there's nothing wrong or nothing going wrong down in the paddock right now. So as a result, we are going to be getting underway, or expecting to get underway within 5 minutes. So at the hour. So that'll be 2100 in the evening at British summertime. As we see Philo making his way out onto circuit right now. The blue and silver liveried BMW M4 there, of course. The one that's based off of, we believe, the Need for Speed Most Wanted BMW, which was the cover car of the game back on the PlayStation 2, making its way to a number of different consoles. And Philo in second place right now in our Alien League standings on those 166 points. He will be looking to try and put one over on Sparks Ferry, or if he can't do that, to at least beat Luke Mitchell, who is getting ever closer to him. The gap between Luke Mitchell and Philo only 5 points as it currently stands. Philo in that second place in the overall standings for the Alien League. As we take a look back in the pits once again, and we can see that we do have Luke Mitchell right now, who is here. He's got the car out in the pit lane, and we can see the British driver here, the 939 driver from MMR. We look forward to seeing what Mitchell is able to achieve, given it is so close between himself and Philo. Now, that is all of our drivers introduced, of course. And as we are waiting now, with only 4 minutes to go, let's talk about our host circuit, which is Interlagos. Now, as we jump on board with one of our drivers who's making their way out of the final corner, we're going to be jumping on board with, I believe it's going to be D10 Piper, and he'll be taking you around the lap. Now, this track will test everything about the car. It's low speed handling, medium speed handling, high speed handling, power uphill, power on a flat straight, you name it. This circuit has got everything, and why it's considered to be one of the circuits which Polyphony Digital did the balance of performance for GT Sports. So coming into turn 1, heavy braking zone into the centre S's, and D10 immediately going a bit too deep there, and now having to come through turns 2 and 3 and getting it nicely now there through 2 to stabilise on the curb into 3 there. Now you've got the long run out of turn 3, the long charge down towards turn 4, down the straight known as the Repro Posta, a long run down here. We're going to be seeing a lot of overtaking action, I'm sure, in the races. Coming to the braking zone for turn 4, braking at about the 75 metre zone there, or the runoff zone. As he makes about the corner there, getting it very wrong, and in fact letting Philo through. So we now hop over to Philo, who's going to continue that through 5 and up the hill towards turn 6 now, coming into the handling orientated sector of sector 2. Through 7 and 8 he goes, the double right-hander here where you want to keep it as tight as possible to the apex curves in both cases, and then coming down into turn 8, into the first of 2 hairpin corners in this sector, one a little bit tighter than the other, and turn 10 is the tighter one too. Turn 9 here, a very awkward downhill left-hander where you've effectively got to be very gradual and putting the throttle when you don't want to get carried away with the throttle. Now the slowest corner on the circuit, turn 10, a very sharp right-hander. Some drivers may be using first gear here, although I suspect second gear is going to be stronger now. It's going through turn 11, the corner where you've got to hug the apex curve as much as possible and just hang the steering tight to the left. And now into turn 12, Junkao, the corner which makes or breaks the end of the lap in your run onto that start-finish straight. Going uphill now, and will be absolutely revving the nuts out of the engine to make it all the way up through the hill, through turn 13, through turn 14, 2 left-handers. Our drivers are going to be completely flat out, and technically turn 15 here coming after the pit entry line, and this is the completion of the lap, and he'll be coming across the line here. Our drivers on qualifying laps will hang to the left, on racing line laps they'll be hanging to the right, and that is a lap brought to you by TNR Philo and D10 Piper. Thank you to both of those gentlemen, of course, for giving us that overview of the circuit, letting us ride on board with them. But it's an interesting circuit, Interlagos. You see it in multiple series, typically Formula 1, as well as a number of GT car racing series. It is a circuit which drivers, well, most drivers I personally think love, or at least a love of a certain sector of the circuit, albeit it may not be for everyone, and I do know a couple of drivers down in the paddock who were not too happy to see this track on the calendar, as we say hello to Zeronic. And when I say they're not too happy about seeing the track on the calendar, just that it's not a track they like. Personally for me, I think this is a track, it's not one of my favourites, but at the same time I know it generates a huge amount of racing action. We're going to be having battles down into turn 1, down into turn 4, up into turn 7, into turn, what is number 9? My sincere apologies. No, up into turn 6, then up into turn 8, into turn 10, and down into turn 12. We've got so many different overtaking opportunities there. You can literally count them out and get completely lost in the numbers, as I just did. But we are about to get underway then with the qualifying session. as it is the hour. So here we go, qualifying is about to kick off. Who is going to be on pole for both of our divisions come the end of the 10 minutes? Well, let's find out. We are still waiting for that countdown, but I'm assuming that Gino's about to kick that countdown off anyway. There's the countdown. 10 seconds to go, and then we get underway. Who is going to be our pole position setter? Now, one of the big questions you may be asking at this point is, will drivers be trying to line up for a slipstream, or will they be going for clear air laps? Now, Interlagos, I think, is one of those circuits where you can benefit considerably from the slipstream in two of the sectors here. Sectors 1 and Sector 3 are both sectors where you can really benefit from a tow because you've got long straights which dominate those sectors to an extent. For example, here, the run down the Repo-Posta, if you're in the tow of another car, you're going to be gaining somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 tenths of a second from that alone. But of course, that means you have an overspeed down into turn at number 4, which kickstarts sector number 2. If you're running through Sector 2 with a tow, you can make that sector work because you do have the uphill run, as Martin's shown us right now, going up the hill from 5 up into 6. But of course, then if you're behind another car, going through 6 and 7, that double right-hander, you've effectively got that dirty air to contend with, and you'll naturally grant yourself more understeer through the corner. So you have to brake a little bit earlier, and that's where you lose a bit of lap time when you're running in the dirty air of another car. But it balances out in Sector 2 because you have that run up the hill, plus you also have that run from turn 10 all the way downhill through 11 into the final sector into 12. So I think our drivers will try to opt to do at least one lap in clear air just to set a reference time, and then the rest of the laps I think they'll be looking for some sort of tow, if not for the entirety of the lap, then definitely in Sector 1, alternatively Sector 3, as we see our drivers all forming a little bit of a traffic line right now as they make their way downhill through 11 and head into 12. But it's going to be Martin, our second place driver right now in Division 1, who's going to take us underway with the opening flying lap. He's got himself a nice bit of space out of the circuit. Let's ride on board and see what he's able to achieve. So coming out of the final corner, then you see he's not going to be holding over to the left here. He's going to stay on the racing line and carry over to the right hand side to commence the lap. And coming into turn 1, heavy braking zone here, braking at about that 50 board, if not a little bit deeper, slamming it down through the gears, and he'll be trying to hug the apex curve there. Goes a little bit wide off the apex curve, couldn't quite get the car stopped, but still a nice run downhill out of 2, cutting a good amount of apex there of 2, and now running out of 3, keeping the car nicely hooked to the inside until he can open the steering and feel that the car will naturally fly out. Now running down towards turn 4 here, the end of Sector 1. Sector 1 being a 24.8, a good opening sector there. Now coming down into turn 4, going a little bit wide of the apex curve there. He's got to be careful getting on the power because he almost ran off onto the AstroTurf there. And if he put all 4 wheels onto that curve and beyond, that would be a half-second penalty. But he's got away with it, Martin. He kept it together, and he makes his way up into turns 6 and 7 here. Going a little bit deep into 6, but he gets it hooked back in for 7, and he lets the throttle flow out towards turn 8, breaking into the first of the 2 hairpins in Sector 2 then, and goes a bit deep and gets it too heavy on the throttle. You could see they just had the throttle in a bit too much, going wide and shortening his apex line for turn number 9. But as he comes out of 9, getting a good flow out of 9 up into 10, he's making the corrections to the mistakes earlier in the lap, particularly in Sector 2, and now coming into 11 here, he's going to have the full confidence to go full throttle, we believe. He does indeed, and flows downhill here in towards turn number 12, going into Juncao at 113.0. I definitely think we're going to be looking at low 112s by that point in the best possible laps. And now coming out the final mandatory corner, and essentially coming into the quote-unquote corners, but this is the long runs to the start-finish line. I refer to it as a single straight. Here goes Martin, and our opening lap then for our drivers to reference against and try to beat is going to be A, as he hangs it into the centre of the circuit, not taking the full qualifying line, a 138.3, and we look back to Edge HJG, another Division 1 driver, and he comes across with a 39.1, Gino with a 38.9, Luke Doherty immediately jumping up a little bit there to a 38.9, Luke Mitchell, meanwhile, the 2 Alien League drivers, the 2 Lukes already going to war, and it is Mitchell who's come off on top after the first qualifying lap with a 38.947, but nobody able to pit Martin so far. So Martin's setting a good indicative pace, as we see D10 Piper setting a 39.6, and I think it hasn't quite worked out for our pack who decided to go for the slipstream, as we see GTP's Rick WRX doing a very nice job there with a 38.597, only 2 tenths off of Martin. But let's look a little bit further around now. We've still got some drivers who are coming through, and we can see that Nath right now on his opening flying lap and trying to make it the best possible improvement. Well, I am wondering what has happened to some of our drivers here because we are missing a couple of drives. I think Sparks isn't putting in a lap until the last possible moment here, and we see Philo is now on his first flying lap. As we've only got 5 minutes to go in this qualifying session, the Cerberus setting a 1:43.3, which is not indicative, but Martin's setting the indicative pace right now for provisional pole of 38.3. Well, Martin will definitely know he's got at least a couple attempts in. Now, I think we could be seeing some 37s come the end of this qualifying session, but let's ride on board with Philo right now, who is on his opening flying lap, having gone for a bit of a spacing lap to begin with, just trying to get himself some nice space out on circuit. And Philo coming into turn 8 right now and getting it hooked up, but going a little bit wide of the apex there. And I'm wondering where our drivers are taking a preferred line of going deep into turn 8, but it hasn't quite worked out for Philo, who's also gone wide of the apex at 9. But perhaps they know something that we don't in terms of the available grip levels out there, as he makes his way through 10 and extends the corner very nice there, riding the exit curve, as we see Edge improves to a 38.576, and Luke Mitchell takes the crown now of provisional pole, although Philo is on a flyer here, 2 tenths up on pole right now, but he goes so deep into Juncal. This is a disaster for Philo, because that was looking to be a very strong lap, and he's going to have to do it all again. But Matthew Lambert has now improved, albeit he's run a little bit wide out of turn 1 there, and Rick, oh my good lord, Rick there with the monster lap of a 37.537, so everybody's now coming alive. I think Matthew Lambert would have been laughing to himself, thinking that he got a nice lap in and got himself onto that provisional pole to put pressure on everyone, and then Rick comes out of nowhere with a 37.5. Well, that is phenomenal, and with 4 minutes to go, our drivers will have at least 2 more flying laps after the one they're currently on. So we do continue to look around, of course, and you can see Luke Mitchell right now trying to use the tower for Gino here in order to get a little bit more lap time, but I think this isn't quite working out because Gino is a bit slower, it would seem, going into Sector 2, as Cerberus improves to a 39.6, putting him in P10 right now, and he's 3 tenths down on D10 Piper. But as we look back to Luke Mitchell and Gino, you can see how Luke is effectively feeling a little bit held up here by Gino, albeit it's not through Gino's fault at all, it could be argued, because Gino's just trying to put in his own fastest lap, and Luke's trying to use him as a bit of a tow wagon, albeit Luke is up on his previous best by 1.8 tenths of a second, and this is a considerable improvement, and now he's going to have a huge tow up towards the start finish line. This could be enough to get him into those 37s. It's all about whether Gino has got enough momentum for Luke to capitalise on that, and I think he is going to have enough as they make their way out of the final turn, then coming across the line, both staying on that qualifying line all the way over to the left hand side. And Luke improved, he does not improve, so he was held up towards the end in Sector 3, and Luke resets to the pits, as we see that Matthew Lambert coming across the line to not improve there after running wide on that lap, but he goes on to another qualifying lap and coming down hard on the brakes and cutting as tight to that apex as possible for turn 1 there. Lambert on a flyer right now, or targeting a flyer we should say, as he is coming through turn 3, but he will have D10 Piper ahead of him, as we can see that Nath improves to a 38.9, putting in provisional P9 at the moment. Nath on that 38.996, just creeping into those 38s. But we look further around right now and we can see that Sparks is on his opening flying lap, and he is purple in the first 2 sectors. We're going to follow him through the final sector then, and this is a looking special from Sparks right now. What's it going to be? He's been saving up that energy for 1 or 2 flying laps, I reckon, and I think he's found himself a nice bit of space on the circuit. No tow needed for this one. What is Sparks going to do? It is looking good, and as he comes out the final corner, he's going to hang it to the left here. I think he feels he's done enough. Oh no, he's staying over to the right. In fact, it's a 37.0, and I think if he'd stayed over to the left, we would have been looking at a 36.9 there. Just missing out on the 36s by 800ths of a second, and he's got 1 more lap to go. But to take the limelight off of Sparks right now, can any driver achieve something even more special and get into those 36s, as Rick is not improving on this lap so far, and Matthew Lambert, meanwhile, finding himself a little bit of traffic as he makes his way into Juncal for the 5th time of asking in qualifying, and goes too deep on the exit there with the dirty air of D10 Piper and spins off the circuit, and I don't think he's going to have enough time to get another lap underway. So Lambert's qualifying session is effectively over because he's lost all that pace in the uphill run to turn 1 for the final lap. So Lambert will not be improving off of a 38.1 right now, as we see that D10 Piper does improve to a 38.915, which moves him up into P10, and then he goes flying wide on turn 1 there. I think he feels he's done everything he can right now, but it's getting very close to those midfield positions, particularly for just outside of the top 5 right now, as then, well, I think it's really the pursuit of P3, and Lambert is the one in the driving seat right now in terms of that provisional P3 with 38.1, but can anybody come back at him, as we see that Martin moves up to P3 with a 38.0, so we're going to see Martin and Lambert go to war here at Interlagos, because they're only separated separated by 1.5 tenths, and Martin is finding pace here at Brazil tonight in the fact that he is coming back and he's coming back strong as DCast improves to a 41.0. I think DCast is right now in P13, and Philo, well, he's coming across the line and sets a 37.4. That's his first flying lap. I think Philo's had a bit of a disastrous qualifying, and Sparks on his final run there improving to a 36.8. We thought it was there for Sparks, and he's found it. He's 6 times up on anybody. Well, I think Sparks has got this one unless there's some magic remaining, as we're coming into the final 15 seconds of this qualifying session before all of our drivers will be mandated to complete their lap. Duskiver improving to a 38.2 there, and very nice lap there from Duskiver, putting himself provisional P6 right now as Lambert retreats to the pits, and I think Duskiver will go for one more lap and see what he can achieve as the timer has closed now, and all of our drivers are coming to the end of their current lap. And are we going to be seeing Eddie Boy improvements for anyone? Philo's got the traffic as Sir Bertus ahead of him. Of course, Bertus right now in P13 with a 39.6 and 6 tenths off of Nafe, who's in P12. And I think Sir Bertus will be saving it all for the race here because it's not working out, and Philo behind him is being held up. But of course, Bertus will say that he's on a flying lap right now, and Philo's trying to find a way through. It's not working out for Philo, who's found himself traffic at the worst possible time in Sector 2 as they both drag race out of Turn 10. Luke Mitchell improves to what is provisional P4 of a 37.7. And we look to see whether that's enough to keep him in P4. Of course, that will place him effectively P4 in the Alien League as well. All of our Alien League drivers, apart from Luke Doherty, up in that top 4 right now. Luke Doherty, by comparison, is down in P9, having completed his qualifying session with that 38.6. Luke just not having a good time at Interlagos. It's not working out, as we're hearing that Mitchell is very happy with his lap down the paddock right now, that 37.7. I think he's very chuffed with himself, as Sir Bertus with a 39.5 promoted himself a little bit further up the order. Well, not any more promotional in terms of the positions, but still holding on to that P13 and doing enough to fend off DCast. And I think that's all of our drivers complete, apart from one driver right now who's making his way to the timing line. Who is it who's just coming across the line right now? It is going to be Duskiver. Can he improve? It doesn't look like it's going to be improvement. So pole position for the Alien League goes to Sparks, and pole position for Division 1 goes to Martin JL09. Well, who would have thought it? Martin coming back at Interlagos and just pipping Lambert by 1.5 tenths. Meanwhile, in that Alien League, Sparks dominating the field by over 6 tenths in the end. We're going to find out whether it's going to be that case in the race. Of course, qualifying is one thing. The race is a completely different entity. Now, of course, remember, our qualifying results here will be input into the lobby by our racing host, that's Gino, and we are going to be crashing the lobby very shortly in order to reset and get our grid set up for race number 1. So this race will crash very shortly. Don't be surprised, folks, and we will be underway with race number 1 within the next 5 minutes. But everybody's going to get the chance now to have a quick run down towards turn 1 in the racing pack to get a feel what it's like racing amongst one another at Interlagos. Every little bit of information and knowledge counts. As we're hearing from Matthew Lambert here, that he didn't have the chance to test the track beforehand, so he's going into this one blind. But still, that's a very impressive qualifying lap with no testing or practice as he reverses back down the grid there. All of our drivers doing a little bit of silly business as we crash the lobby. Matthew finding his reverse gear there very easily. But now we wait for the lobby to be recreated. Now, in the meantime, of course, what can we expect here tonight? Well, you do have to keep in mind that with regards to Interlagos, we do have quite a short rundown into turn 1. And what that means is our drivers who start on the left-hand side can immediately go heavy defensive into turn 1 and essentially try to hold off the charge from the drivers around them. However, the tighter the line they take into turn 1, the more difficult it's going to be for them to maintain momentum through 2 and 3 through the centre S's. So that's the thing they do have to watch out for, and some drivers may be trying to sweep it around the outside to get the inside for turn 2, as we are just waiting for that lobby to reappear. But I think this one will all be about the launch off the line rather than the case of can you sweep it around the outside into turn 1. If you get a good launch, then you're going to be in a very strong position going into those centre S's. And there's our lobby. Our lobby has been recreated, so Gina will be waiting for everybody to get into the lobby. And then it will be a case of set the grid, and we are go, go, go. So within the next 5 minutes, race number 1 will be coming at you, folks. But another thing to think about as well is that it is the odd number drivers in terms of starting positions who will start on the outside of turn 1. So they start on the left hand side of the grid when we pan the camera towards the grid, and it is our even number drivers, so 2nd, 4th, 6th, etc., who start on the inside. So the evens will have a little bit of a positional advantage going into turn 1. But of course, our odd number drivers will technically have the starting point advantage. They'll start a little bit further up the road. So for the battle for P1, as long as P1 gets a good run, unless P2 goes for a really strong lunge into turn 1, you can imagine that P1 would feel confident that they can hold on to that position. But we'll wait and see what happens, because Interlagos always throws up some brilliant racing, whether it be in the sim racing world in terms of FIA, or alternatively in the Formula 1 world. It has been a circuit which has crowned multiple champions over the years, whether it be the champion Mikael Hazal in the FIA Nations, or FIA manufacturers in the form of Subaru, Hazal, Miyazono and Solis, or alternatively in the real world of Formula 1, such as Lewis Hamilton, for example. With the legendary Is That Glock moment coming out of Junção in 2000 and, if I remember correctly, 2008. But it's also a circuit in Interlagos which takes no prisoners, in the fact that it's also a bit of a hoodoo or a voodoo circuit for some drivers in the real world and in the sim world as well. One of the most common examples which is referred to, and I always look back to, is Ayrton Senna. It took him 8 attempts to win at his home race at Interlagos, and even then, when he did win, there were issues with his car's transmission in that race, and he looked absolutely exhausted come the end of it. And Albon, of course, having a very difficult time here with the incident between himself and Lewis Hamilton. I believe it was only a couple of years ago, back in 2019, I want to say, where the two came to blows. Well, that may have actually been last year. But we are waiting for our drivers to ready up right now, and then we should be good to go. As Martin getting a little bit of a practice start here, we can see a number of drivers opting to take the time to make that practice start, to get a feel for what it's like in the run off the line down towards turn 1 here. Because remember, they'll be running on cold tyres. They've got that short run as well. It's going to be a very difficult braking point compared to what they'd normally brake at. And on those cold tyres, and thank you for clarifying there, Luke Mitchell, in terms of it was in 2019 where Hamilton and Albon came to blows up at turn, I believe it was turn 10, they came to blows, and Albon's race was left in tatters as a result, after what was looking to be a very promising podium at that point. But we are waiting for that grid set up right now. I believe we do have all 14 drivers. Yep, they're all readied up. So we are just waiting for that grid to be set. And this is a good opportunity, if you haven't already, to quickly hop away to the bathroom or get yourself a quick drink and a snack. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. And we should also introduce, whilst we've got that idle moment, our sponsor. That is FASTR, or Be Faster, which is a company dedicated to getting more and more people of all ages into motorsport, in terms of careers, interests, you name it. Be Faster wants to be there at the pinnacle of it, trying to bring more and more people into the world of motorsport, because it is a growing profession, whether it be in terms of a professional sport or a hobby. Motorsport is for everybody, and at the end of the day, the more the merrier. And we are here, and we are getting some technical issues with Luke Doherty here, who seems to have had only 11. Well, we will help get that clarified. There we go. And I think we are going to be getting the lights out and underway for race number 1. Although there might be a little bit of an eyebrow raised as to Luke Doherty having some connectivity issues in terms of seeing drivers, but we will wait and see. But if you are interested in finding out more about FASTR, as we get the countdown, 10 seconds, it's race number 1 coming at you now, folks. Who's going to be the winner come the end of it? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid for race number 1, it's Sparks on the left, Philo on the right. Behind them, we've got Rick and Luke Mitchell. And looking even further back, Martin started in P6, the lead driver of Division 1. Can he hold on to the win for race 1? And it's lights out and away we go. And Rick having a very difficult start there. Luke Doherty immediately getting the jump on Rick in the battle for P3. But as they all come down towards turn 1, it's that short run. We can see they're 3 wide into turn 1. Luke Mitchell holding on the inside versus Doherty and Rick. Mitchell going a bit deep on the brakes, however. And as a result, find himself on the inside quite nicely for turn 2 and losing a lot of momentum, but holding on to track position right now. Meanwhile, up front, Sparks and Philo already breaking away as they all run down the Reparoposta straight now down towards turn number 4 for the first time of asking. You can see up front how Sparks feeling a little bit of pressure from Philo, but Philo not making a move. Luke Mitchell holding off Doherty, although Doherty goes for a quick lunge into the side of Mitchell there. A little bit of a knot, and Mitchell's knocked wide. And further back, we have had some major contact into turn 4 from what I'm hearing as they all make their way up the hill now towards turn number 6. And you can see in the rear of your picture a huge cluster of cars here for the Division 1 drivers. Edge at the lead of that cluster in P7. Behind him, you've got Descriver, you've got Gino. Gino going for the move on Descriver, but can't quite find a way past, as we see that Rick, meanwhile, has made the move on Luke Doherty into turn 8 for P5, and he's holding it around the outside in turn 9. Rick up into P5 once again after those major quick gains from Doherty, and now he's dropped down the order to where he started out effectively. Although in the mix there, Martin is up into P4, it should be pointed out. Martin running away a little bit right now. Our Division 1 driver has started in P6, making his way up into P4 and gaining very rapidly. And his main competitor, meanwhile, Matthew Lambert, all the way down the order in P14 as they all come out of the final corner then Junkao to head on to the start-finish straight. A drag race here as D10 Piper's got it very wrong, and Nave on the inside of Piper and Sir Bertus. So after one lap, it is Sparks Fury leading by 8 tenths of a second over Philo, followed by Luke Mitchell, then it's Martin, then Rick, followed by Doherty, then Edge, then it's the Skyver in P8, followed by Gino Demmer, then Nave in P10. Then we've got Sir Bertus battling with D10 Piper in, and also Nave into turn 1. Bertus goes to the inside of both, and he picks up what looks to be P10, although Nave's going to try and sweep round the outside into 2. He's not wide, he won't be happy with that, and Bertus, there's contact, and Bertus is knocked hereditary wide as he goes all the way out to the outside there, and that was some major contact between the two of them. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a grumble in the paddock afterwards, but Nath continues on his way. He'll argue that he got knocked wide out of 1 into 2 and he tried to rejoin, but the momentum is what sent him wide as Piper tries to get on the mix, and Matthew Lambert is now trying to find his way through as Bertus is definitely not happy. We're hearing it continues on all the same as Lambert is now up into P10, but he's got a long way to go here to get himself back up the order as we look back up to our leaders right now, and you can see that Luke Mitchell is having to hold on for dear life, and behind him Martin going for the move on Rick here into turn 9, and Martin is going to be on the outside into 10. Rick coming back, and I think from Martin's perspective, who you're riding on board with now, the British driver here, our lead Division 1 driver as it currently stands in this race, really taking the fight to our Alien League drivers and doing everything he possibly can to simply stay with them. Because I think from his perspective, he'd love to claim a scalp or 2 here, and this is the most competitive he'll felt for some time as he makes his way up the hill now, and Martin, we're going to stay with him just a little bit longer as he goes on to lap number 3. Martin putting in a solid performance here, and you can see how Rick is trying to use the toe off of Mitchell in order to get a run down to turn 1, and Mitchell weaving to try and break as much of that toe as possible. He's allowed 1 weave into the braking zone, but not many more than that as they come into the braking zone for the 3rd toe of asking. You can see how Martin is close, and Mitchell goes very deep there, and as they come down to 2. He holds once again to inside line, much like on lap number 1. Mitchell having practiced that for sure in terms of going deep into 1 and using it as a defensive posture into 2 and through into 3. But he's going to be vulnerable now, we suspect, down into 4. Or will it be the case that instead Rick's going to be looking at his rearview mirror? In fact, Rick goes defensive before they're even halfway down the straight versus Martin into the braking zone. They go, and as they emerge out of it, Rick understeers a little bit and Martin is knocked slightly, but rejoins, and Doherty now tries to find his way up there. Martin finds himself pushed out into P6, and now Doherty tries to come through. They're going side by side up the hill into turn 6, and Doherty makes it past Martin, although Martin will be coming back at Doherty, that I'm sure, within the next couple of corners as they look into turn 8 here, and there's no move this time around. And behind them you can see Gino in P7 right now, having a good day at the races is Gino here, as he's got past Edge. We didn't see that else off camera, but Edge in P8, and he's got Describer over the back of him as Edge, as we've got this little train of cars in the midfield right now, gradually closing up to that battle for P3. They're not too far behind, they're only about a second behind the battle for P3, and they'll want to get into that fight if they can, although Gino doing his best to hold on to P7 right now with Edge all over the back of him. So it is very close in the battle for P7, and it's very close in the battle for P3, as we see that Luke Mitchell holding on and started to pull a little bit of a gap over the drivers behind, but he does have that 0.2 of a second penalty to burn within a lap. As we can see behind them, Martin now chasing after them, having dropped down the order, and Edge, he's got past Gino in the run out of the final quarter, but they're going to stay battling all the way down to turn 1. Onto lap number 4 they go. It's going to be 4 wide as Lambert joins in the fray here. Gino moves to the inside, Lambert backs out of it, and Edge in the middle here. He's got drivers on both sides. He goes a little bit under braking, and Describer sweeps around the outside and gets it done by looks of things as he squeezes Edge as much as he possibly can into turn 2, but Edge hides himself around the outside of 2, on the inside into 3. And Edge comes back in a very nice order. It's Brit versus Brit as they now drag race down towards turn number 4 for the 4th time of asking. Edge on the inside, Describer on the outside. This is the battle for P7 that you're watching, and they make their way into the corner here as we hear D10 Piper has retired from the race. We believe there's technical issues with the car. We're very sorry to hear that, but you can see that Gino getting it wrong there, and Lambert now going for the cut back into 5 and carrying the momentum up the hill here. Matthew's got to, of course, get as much momentum as possible and try to gain as many places as he can to marginalise the amount of points that Martin is going to gain over him in this race number 1, as Lambert is getting closer and closer to the back of Edge. He's already broken away from Gino, and he's building up the pace now, is Lambert, as he goes hunting after another position and recovers from what was his starting position of P7. As he goes to the move into turn 10, he's on the inside. It's a standard move, and I think Edge did not expect it to come that early, and he's made it work as Lambert, as he's got past Edge, and now they make their way through 11 and down towards 12. A good recovery drive so far from Lambert after a very difficult start. And meanwhile up front, Sparks is now 1.8 seconds clear of Philo, who is still chasing after him. These two of course being 6 seconds clear of Rick, who is up into P3 after all is said and done. He's got his way past Luke Mitchell, what with everything that's happened, and Rick now being chased very heavily by the British driver here as they make their way down towards turn number 1 for the 5th time of asking. Rick and Mitchell, they're simply staying in line right now, but Doherty versus Martin. Doherty on the inside there, but with a second penalty, he's going to have to burn that soon, and Martin hanging all over the back of him, and he'll notice down his rearview mirror he has got Matthew Lambert, his championship rival, chasing after him. The gap of course at this point in time a comfortable 3 seconds, but with the battle in between Martin and Doherty, that gap is only going to come down in a very short rate as Doherty defends into turn 4, and as they come through the corner here, Martin will know that he's got to get the move done soon as he looks at the cut back into 5, and this will give him the outside line, the racing line up into 6 as Doherty tries to hold to the inside here. He doesn't back out of it, neither driver wants to give way to the other. And you love to see it, of course, but Martin will be thinking right now. And Doherty goes very deep into turn 7, and Martin's got the momentum up the inside into 8. Now, can he make it stick here? Can Doherty come back at him? I don't think Doherty's going to have the comeback on him as they make their way out of 9 and up into 10. Will Doherty go for the move into turn 10? I think he's too far back to try it, and I think Martin has finally got it done and has regained P5, and this means he's now got a bit of space from Lambert. Of course, in the point standings, the fact that Lambert's got Doherty ahead of him won't matter to the points, but it'll be a psychological advantage for Martin. He'll know that Lambert, if he wants to get him in this race, Lambert's got to pass at least one driver before he can take Martin on, and that is a barrier that he'll be very comfortable with as our field is now starting to space out a little bit with only 1 minute and 50 seconds remaining. You can see behind, Edge has broken away from Describer, who was coming on strong, and Gino now dropping down to P10. It's been a difficult one for Gino after that good run early on in the race. The momentum is starting to fall away a little bit, but he has got a 7.6 second gap to Nath in P11 right now. And we've got D-Cast chasing after Nath, only half a second behind and closing what the slipstream down the straight here in towards turn number 1 as they go on to lap number 6. Then they come into this braking zone. Will D-Cast go for it? He's quite far back if he's going to go for it. And we can see that Sir Bertus catching up to this, of course. The incident between Nath and Sir Bertus on lap number 3, setting off a chain of events, which saw Sir Bertus drop very far down the order, but Bertus is catching, and Bertus is catching like wildfire here as the Dutchman goes to the move on D-Cast. It's the drag race down towards turn number 4 then, and you can see they're side by side here, door to door, as Sir Bertus is trying to squeeze D-Cast as much as possible and say to him, no, I've got the inside line, you're going to have to accept the outside line, my friend. And D-Cast goes a little bit wide there out of 4, and that's going to cost him a penalty. I think that's going to be a half-second penalty. It is indeed, and now Sir Bertus making his way after Nath. He's going back after his rival from earlier on. Meanwhile, up front, we can see that Rick in P3 has broken away from Luke Mitchell by the window of a second so far, but Mitchell closing up a little bit towards the end of Sector 2 here. They're trading lap times apiece, and as they make their way up towards Junkao for the 6th time of asking, you do wonder, as Rick goes a little bit wide there, he drifts off the apex. The tyre wear started to come in effect, a little bit of grading on those tyres by looks of things, and you can see now that Mitchell is in that slipstream zone, and he'll be getting that very distant toe from 0.75 seconds and closing. He'll get a distant toe, and he'll be in the fighting position going into the final lap here as they make their way around. They should just make it across the line. Not all of our drivers are going to make it onto a 7th lap, and we believe it is going to be our first driver home will be Matthew Lambert, who comes across the line in P7, Edge in P8, it's going to be Discover in P9, Gino in P10, and then behind them it is going to be Nath, who is going to hold off Sir Bertus to P11, although there may be a little bit of discussion about what happened later on as they come across the line here. Nath, who is going to be coming home in P11, Sir Bertus P12, D-Cast P13, but up front the battle rages on for what is P3 right now, as you can see that Rick and Luke Mitchell are getting ever closer. Mitchell really charging after his Alien League competitor right now. Mitchell feeling very comfortable by looks of things on his tyres, and with this combination of the M4 and Interlagos, and he's going to have one lap, well half a lap now, to try and get that 3rd place. Can he do it? Well, Rick goes very deep into 7. I think there may be an opportunity for Mitchell should Rick continue to make little mistakes like this, but it seems as though Rick has got the momentum on his side, and whilst he's making the occasional mistake, Rick feels very comfortable through the handling sector here. You can see how that gap is opening up little by little as they come up in towards turn number 10 here. And I don't think Rick is going to be feeling too much pressure as Mitchell gets a little bit too early on the power there and skids off of the apex curb at turn 10. He collects it nicely, and in fact that run there has given him the best window he's ever had. It's going to be a drag race then out of the final corner. Mitchell nailing the final corner by comparison with Rick. That gap, 4.5 tenths. Is there going to be enough time in the drag race? As we see coming across the line to complete race number 1 is our race winner, Sparks, leading it from start to finish. Philo coming home 3.5 seconds behind in P2, and it's going to be GTP's Rick in the end, who just holds off Luke Mitchell by 2.5 tenths. They come across the line, and Martin coming home in P5. He'll be pleased with that, and Luke Doherty rounding off our field with a P6 at the end of race number 1. That's our order. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner, Sparks Fury from the United Kingdom. What a cracking race number 1. There was plenty of action up and down the field. And here are your race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course. Sparks there bringing home the race win, Philo coming home in P2, and GTP's Rick WRX rounding off the podium. Luke Mitchell and Martin JL09 rounding off our top 5. Now, of course, when you think about separating it into the different leagues, the Alien League is our podium finishers in terms of our top 3 in the Alien League. And our top 3 for Division 1 were Martin JL09 with that P5, which you'll be very pleased with. Matthew Lambert in P7, doing a good recovery job to come home an effective P2 for Division 1. And Edge with his first podium in Division 1 effectively. I think he'll be very pleased with that, Will Edge, after what has been a up and down season so far. But Lambert having a very difficult time in turn 1 there. And whilst the grid is being set up, we're just going to make a very quick log of the results. So if you give us 2 seconds, folks. But it definitely was one of those races where I think all of our drivers felt they had to get things done early in terms of moves, and it could tell because once the drivers started to form into packs, then it became a case of much more isolated battles. And Will Lambert in particular really having to try and find his way up through the field. He made it work in the end, and of course we did have that one retirement of D-Cast, well not D-Cast, my sincere apologies, of a D10 Piper, which is very unfortunate. Hopefully we will have him back for race number 2. But all of our drivers right now, all our drivers are just cooling it a little bit and getting ready to go once again. As race number 2 will be coming out shortly. I believe Gino has already input the grid order, so we're good to go if Gino is. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Race number 2 coming at you. Another 10 minutes. Who's going to be our winner in the reverse grid race? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid, this time it'll be Doherty and Mitchell who line up on our front row. Our Alien League being reverse gridded, of course. And then for our Division 1 drivers, it will be D-Cast, and alongside him, Sir Bertus in P6 and P7, starting off our Division 1 reverse grid. And it's lights out, away we go, and D-Cast there having a very slow start by comparison to the drivers around him. And as they make their way up towards turn 1 here, we saw that Nath was looking very competitive. Doherty defended the inside immediately, knowing where he needs to plant that car. And Rick going defensive versus Sparks as Philo's up into P3 already, jumping at Rick on the line as they make their way down through the centre S's for the first time, asking Bertus up into P6 and hold on to that position right now. And Nath feeling very competitive, having already got past D-Cast, have both Sir Bertus and Nath as they make their way down towards turn number 4, and you could see that Mitchell already going for a move on Doherty, but in return Philo sizing up the inside there and finding the space, and Philo up into P2. Rick's going to try and find his way alongside Mitchell here through turn 5 as they all run up the hill. Then who is it going to be who comes out leaving? Doherty defends the inside, Philo tries to sweep round the outside. They're side by side across 6 and 7 here. Rick doing the same with Mitchell going through 7, and as they come into the braking zone for turn 8, you've got Mitchell who's trying to squeeze through. There's contact, Philo is not wide. I think Mitchell just broke a little bit too deep there and backs out of it immediately so as to give Philo the space, and that means that Rick and Mitchell are still side by side through 9. Coming up into 10 they go, and Mitchell has gained the position there after the little impact there, the little mistake, and Sparks now tries to find his way past Rick on the inside into 10, and Rick I think was caught out by surprise there as Sparks has now made the move stick and he's moved up into P4. So our Alien League drivers all coming to blows already, and as they make their way out of Junkow and in the long run to the start finish line to complete lap number 1, you can see how close it is. And further back, Sir Bertus is under pressure from Nath right now. Our 2 Division 1 drivers trying to break away a little bit, but they've got Edge chasing after them. So after 1 lap, it is Luke Doherty making his way across the line ahead of TNL Philo, followed by Luke Mitchell. Then it's Sparks Fury, who is battling with, it looks to be, a Luke Mitchell into turn 1, and also Rick trying to come around the outside. So Sparks planting it on the inside there, not able to gain the position, but not losing the position to Rick. Rick in P5 right now, followed by Sir Bertus in P6, Nathan in P7, Edge in P8, Descriver in P9. And you've got a 2-second window back to our next pack, which is led by Gino Demo as D-Cast and Matthew Lambert are going to war as they make their way out of turn number 2 and 3 and drag race down towards turn 4. We can see that Lambert and Martin have not gained any positions per se, although D-Cast backs out of it into turn 4 there, I think recognising that he wasn't going to be able to hold up the place for too long versus Lambert, and he was only costing himself time. So D-Cast there going for a smart move as we got a yellow flag at turn number 5. What has happened here? We've got yellow flags, we have got a driver off. I'm not sure what's happened, ladies and gentlemen. We'll find out very shortly for you, but somebody is parked effectively across the circuit at 6 as we see Rick and Doherty going to blows here. And hold up a second, we're missing someone. We're missing Luke Mitchell. What has happened to our Alien League driver who is all the way down the order? We'll find out very shortly for you as Rick and Doherty go into turn 10, and Rick has got it done on Doherty, who goes wide out of 10, gets a little bit of a snap oversteer moment, but keeps it together, and Bertus and Nath watch on and try to close up. But right now, all the way down the bottom of the field, what happened to Mitchell? So going into turn 4 on lap number 2, then you're going to see Mitchell was in P2 at this point, but I think he's going to get squeezed a little bit wide here by Doddy. Does he end up getting pushed out of the circuit here? Doddy there, actually with a bit of lag, just simply taps the rear of Luke Mitchell's car, and that sends him into a tailspin and into the wall. That is disastrous for Mitchell there. There will definitely be words with the stewards after that one, because that seemed to be unwarranted, though we can't see all the camera angles. It's not my job, I'm not one of the stewards. As we see, hold on a second, is that somebody going for the mother of all lunges into turn 1? It was Sir Bertus who went for a major move there. It hasn't played out as effective as he would like, and Edge now finding his way into this fight. The British driver here side by side with Nath out of turn 3. What on earth happened there? Well, nonetheless, they're making their way down the Reproposta, and you can see Doddy weaving to give them both a little bit of excess tow as they come down to turn 4, and it's going to be Edge versus Nath. Nath on the inside, Edge on the outside. They come out the corner, and Sir Bertus uses Edge's little mistake to the outside there to go at the inside as they come out of 5. Sir Bertus back up into P6 right now as we look backwards here from the Nath Mobile as he makes his way through turn 7, and Bertus on the inside there out of 7, not able to make the momentum, but he taps the back of Nath's car there, and he goes a little bit wide as a result, does Nath, as Sir Bertus gains the position, but I think Nath will be expecting that to be given back. As you can see, we have got a huge traffic jam forming of cars in that battle for P4, and as Doddy burns his penalty coming out of 9 here, you can see it's now Sir Bertus leading a pack of what is effectively, looking back, about 10 cars, well, I say 10 cars, yep, 9 cars in fact, making their way out of turn 10 and down towards sector 3. As Sir Bertus gets it a little bit wide on the grass there, under braking into turn 12. Edge goes as wide as possible to get the slingshot line, but we have got 9 cars battling for P4 right now. You love to see it as they make their way out of the final corner along the run towards the start-finish line to go on to lap number 4. Who's going to be leading come the end of lap number 4? Who knows in this battle for P4, as meanwhile up front things are stabilised, and Sir Bertus and Nath going side by side into turn 1. Nath on the outside, Bertus on the inside. Nath tries to hang it around the outside here. A very brave move if he can make it work. Bertus squeezes him as much as possible, but Nath's still there. The Red Bull driver holds on. They're giving each other so much space here, and you can see that Edge is trying to get on the mixer because they're so slow through the centre S's. We've now got 4 cars all trying to find space in the run down towards turn 4. They go down here. It's Sir Bertus on the inside, Edge in the middle, Nath on the outside. Describer tries to sneak in as well, tries to get his nose in the mix there. Sniffing the position, and Matthew Lambert makes a move on both Describer and Edge, and he tries to find his way past Edge here. He's going to have the momentum up the hill, but Edge is on the inside into 6 and 7. Bertus and Nath still side by side, going up into the double right-hander sequence. And as they make their way through the corner here, Edge still has that inside. Lambert on the outside. He backs out of it. He looks for the cutback, but he can't find it as Edge goes to the move on Nath, with Sir Bertus getting the move done on Nath once again to hold on to the position. And Lambert comes back at Edge here through turn 9. Edge goes a little bit wide there, and now it looks as though Lambert's looking for the move on Nath. He's going for a double, but there's contact between Edge and Lambert. Edge going into the back of Lambert and propelling him onwards all the same, and Lambert gaining P4 as a result of that contact. Well, I think Lambert will be glad that he's cleared the traffic jam right now, and meanwhile his championship rival of Martin is at the back of this pile of cars here, and trying to find his way through, of course, as he makes his way onto the run to the start-finish straight. And you can see from Martin's perspective right now, as we jump on board with the British driver, he's got a 4-wide situation, which he's part of, as he's got Gino on his right-hand side. He's got the inside on Gino. He's going to have it, but the Skyver and Edge battling, and Edge just going beyond track limits there. I think that's going to be a penalty. They're 4 wide, coming down into turn 1 as they go on to lap number 5, and Martin's right in the middle, and I think he's going to go around the outside, in fact, of all 3 of them as they make their way down, but Edge holds on, and Edge, in fact, squeezes his way back past, using the full width of the circuit into turn 2, and Martin loses the momentum as a result, and now Gino and Descriver are finding their way back into this battle. It's frantic stuff, and you can see that battle for P5 at the forefront of your camera. Bertus and Nath once again equally paced, going into turn 4, and behind them, Gino defending to the inside versus Edge, having that momentum. Martin goes to the cutback, and Gino goes deep as a result, and Martin, I think, has got it done. He's finally cleared the 3 of them for P7, and can chase after Nathan Sir Bertus now and hunt down that second place in the Division 1 race with 2.5 minutes to go. Martin is looking ferocious. He's built himself an appetite and he's going hunting, and we can see that Bertus and Nath continue to fight as they come down into 9 and up towards 10 right now. My goodness, what a sequence of events, and it doesn't stop there, I can tell you right now, as Gino and Duskiver go into turn 10. Gino on the inside, Duskiver on the outside. He goes to the move. It's a traditional move, and Gino's got it done, and Edge is not wide, as I think Duskiver got on the power too soon there, and he didn't realise that Edge was side by side with him, and we can see that Luke Mitchell battling with Decast in the rear view camera shot briefly as they make their way into turn 12. Decast goes deep, and Luke Mitchell inherits the place by default as a result, as they make their way out of the final corner, and I believe these drivers will have one more lap to go. Meanwhile, of our leaders, we should look back at our leaders quickly. Sparks is leading by 2.6 seconds ahead of Philo right now, and Rick is chasing after Philo. The gap is 1.5 seconds. It'll be about 0.8 seconds when Philo burns that penalty. We'll keep our eyes on it, and Lambert in P4, 3 seconds up the road from the rest of the field. As we see, hold on a second, what's happened to Martin here? He spun out. No, that's a disaster for Martin. He was doing so well to make his way up through the field. Let's take a look back, because that is a disaster. So coming down towards turn 1 here, does Martin just make a mistake of his own accord by going wide? He does indeed. He just goes a little bit too wide on entry and spins the car into the apex. That's a disaster for Martin. After driving it so well, all that momentum is gone. Well, Martin's going to be ruining what was a missed opportunity to chase after his championship rival, who we weren't just looking at, but Sir Bertus, meanwhile, still holding off Nath. We've got this 1 lap to go. Nath chased after Sir Bertus. These two have been neck and neck, but I think Bertus has finally got a gap on his rival here. The British driver just cannot come back at him. We will keep our eyes on this, as we can see behind that Gino hold off to Skyver for the time being, and the British driver, well, the two countrymen going toe to toe, but Gino, I think, has got enough momentum here to hold on, as I can tell you right now that Teodor Philo has accrued a 1.5 second penalty around the current lap, and he's got Rico over the back of him. So as they go on to the final lap for these two, they will be doing a 7th lap. It's looking as though effectively Philo is going to have to try and pull a gap on Rick right now, but as they come to the start finish line, I think our first driver to come across the line will be Matthew Lambert to complete his 6th and final lap. Lambert comes home in P4. Sir Bertus in the end holds off Nath for P5. Nath doing a good job there, and Gino holds off to Skyver for P7. P9 will go to Luke Mitchell, who clatters toward the end. Doherty in P10. Decast in P11. Edge will come home in P12, and Martin with that disastrous race end finishing last of our running drivers. Of course, D10 Piper not able to make it back for this race, but meanwhile in that battle for P2 right now, well, as Philo goes very wide out of 2, I think at this point Philo recognises he's picking up so many time penalties here that he goes up to a 2.4 second penalty for an extra second out of turn number 4, that unless he can make Rick make a major error here or make Rick pick up a penalty, Rick's got this done, and immediately Philo back in habit. He's going to fight. He is going to fight versus Rick, but this will be just for the glory of battling. It won't be for position, because Rick right now is guaranteed to take that place once that penalty is applied to Philo's race time. So Philo right now is looking for that P3, but as these 3 drivers who are making their 7th lap come to the conclusion of their race number 2, they have done a fantastic job of running away from the field, and the battling has been great all the way through. But as he makes his way out the final sequence of corners coming up the uphill, this man right here once again showing his dominant form, making it 2 out of 2 tonight in round number 7 at Interlagos. He comes out the final corner. Sparks Fury takes the win in round number 7 at race number 2 for the Alien League, and behind him it will be Rick, who has come back to life after a disastrous midpoint in his season. Rick the Dutchman with that P2, and Philo coming home in P3. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner, Sparks Fury from the United Kingdom once again. What an absolutely brilliant race 2. And well, I'll tell you one thing, folks, it may have only been 10 minutes of racing, but that felt like a lot more than 10 minutes of racing. That was absolutely fantastic. And our race results, subject to any stewards of queries, of course, Sparks Fury making it 2 out of 2 with that P1. ahead of GTP's Rick WRX there, bringing it home in P2. Rick being very happy with 2 podiums tonight in the Alien League, of course, and then P3 going to Philo. Philo just not able to get that consistent pair of second places that he would have liked tonight with that time penalty. And then we can see, looking further down the order, our top 5 in the race was rounded out by Matthew Lambert in P4. Matthew will be very happy with that one, given how his race 1 went, and also qualifying, and the fact he didn't have that practice beforehand. And Sir Bertus with a P5 there, a well-earned P5 for the Dutchman, and effectively what was a P2 for our Division 1 drivers. In terms of how it played out in the respective leagues, well, our podium represents our podium for the Alien League, and our podium for the Division 1 guys, Matthew Lambert winning the Division 1 Race 2, Sir Bertus in P2, and Nath bringing on that brilliant form once again in the reverse grid race with another solid podium. Well done to Nath there. But that is our race results, ladies and gentlemen, and fastest lap in that one going to Sparks Fury on lap 5 at 36.784, the fastest lap we've seen all evening, I believe. There was complete carnage through some of the racing there. And we are being asked to save the replay. We've already got it. I think there are going to be some stewards' inquiries. And I think there was also that brilliant 4-way fight between our Alien League drivers at the start. Well, 5-way fight, effectively. But definitely, we've had some fantastic... It was a pleasure to watch our Alien League drivers go absolutely toe-to-toe. Oh, goodness me. But there's our final results. And really, that has been round number 7 of the Next Gen Racing BMW M4 FASTR League Season 20. And we'll be back this time next week for what is round number 8, of course. But until then, it's farewell from me, your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, or Britain a Spit, depending on the media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, to stay on track. Good night.